Hello, I'm Thomas Dimuzio, and welcome to my world of sound and processing and sampling and sonics. I'm here to show you what I do, and what we have here you could call an instrument, even though it's a bunch of components wired together. But these components, which include basic off-the-shelf hardware from just about any music store through the years. Some of the stuff may not be available readily, but we have a sampler, a Kurzweil 2600 sampler, which is the primary processing unit for live sampling and synthesis and processing. And that Kurzweil is being controlled by MIDI controllers here, the Fader Master being a MIDI controller, old school, and the Eterol PCR 300, which I like a lot. It packs tons of control into a small area, which is great. And the Kurzweil is feeding into a mixing board, and that mixing board feeds the speakers or the front of house or the PA system. But also on the mixer are components. We've got a PCM 70 from Lexicon, which is a feedback generator in this world. It actually creates sounds rather than processes sounds. And we have a superlative looper, which is capturing a lot of the output of the Kurzweil and locking it in time, freezing it in time, and allowing different structures and such to come out of this world. We have a Sherman filter bank, which is processing sounds of the feedback, and we have a scrotum smasher from Metasonics, because your music still sucks, and this is also processing the feedback signals.
I like the little knobs on this.
The knobs, yeah, scrotum up your ass, teabag switch. Yeah, it's got all the good stuff, man.
Got this teabagger blue balls. Okay, meanwhile,
we have a CD DJ, which is also another sound source. And all these sound sources are feeding the Kurzweil. You can actually see input on the Kurzweil's meters here, meaning that it's getting some sound. I'm feeding it what's on the CD. So when I hit play, boom, the Kurzweil's getting some signal. And what is that signal? Well, welcome to my world again. This is what we're hearing right now. It's basically the CD being played, being manipulated. But we don't hear anything unless I let it through by playing a key, because that CD is feeding my sampler. And all the sampling is being done in real time. The reverse processing, any pitch manipulations, things like that.
so by real time you mean it's instead of recording samples, it's actually just playing back what it's most recently heard when you hit a
What
key.
it's being fed right now. So if I play a really low note like this one,
Yeah.
it's actually what's being played right now being slowed down.
So if you held that note down for a 4-minute song, would it play you 12 minutes?
Well, now we get into how this whole world works in terms of the processing and the buffering. But yes, in a way, it would play, well, not really. In shorter amounts of time, yes. For example, if we go back to the beat, listen to the 4, 4, 3, 4, 1, 5, 6. I'm back on the beat. If I count 6, transpose down a fourth, I can come back on a beat because it's actually slowing down real time, and a fourth is 3 against 4. So I can count 6 and come back on a beat without hearing what that beat is, except through its transposition. So again, we have another one here. I'll wait till it kicks in. 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Octave's a lot easier because you can come back right on the beat because it's just half tempo. But the buffer itself is very small. It's only 1.5 megabytes. This sampler wasn't designed to do this real-time processing, especially through key transposition and applying its synthesis engine and so forth, taking advantage of all the internal processing of this Kurzweil. Wasn't designed to do that, so you have to work with some limitations in this world. And the buffer is only about 8 seconds or so in terms of before it empties and then refills. And when it empties and refills, you get a little bit of a glitch.
You had a pretty good sample of that when you were doing a reverse.
Yeah, reverse, you can actually, take what's happening in real time and play it backwards. Fade between forwards and backwards. Furthermore, you can actually transpose the pitch too, slightly or radically. The half step of transposition, which can be nice and subtle, give you a woozy feeling. But that's just what's going on here. In fact, let's get real technical quickly. What we hear in real time is the pass-through signal, which happens to be my middle C. So if I stop the CD and start it, it's what's happening now. Now the Kurzweil has 3 layers to its world. So this one key has 3 layers behind it. I'm playing layer 1, which is forwards. Layer 2 is backwards. And layer 3 is an octave down. And so that's my basic principle of what's going on here. I've got 3 layers for every key that I press. I can mix those layers. One's forward, the other's backwards, the other's an octave down. Now, those 3 layers are subject to internal processing on the Kurzweil. So just something like a low-pass filter can be very effective because I can apply low-pass filtering to each of those 3 layers. For example, here's the first layer. There's a low-pass filter only on the first layer. I can bring up the second layer, and we've got the reverse. Bring the low-pass down on that while bringing it up on the first layer. And you can just sit here and play with these faders. I mean, a low-pass filter is almost like a volume pedal too, because you can make things sort of go away. They're just way down there in the subsonics right now. And you can sort of bring them back as well. And you got the pitch control on top of that. And the volume control. And then you factor in a little bit of resonance too, so I can make these filters resonant. So, they become very filter-like. And all this is done through real-time manipulation of these 3 layers. And that's the basic principle. 3 layers with volume control going into modulation, which could be a low-pass filter, a ring modulator, distortion, wraparounds, a bunch of different processors that are within the algorithms of this Kurzweil. And then we got our 3 pitch layers of pitch control. And then we have 1 crossfader here, and this is only because I programmed it that way, that affects the resonance on all 3 of these layers. And very playable, very playable. And I sort of set all this up backwards, where layer 1 is actually on the right, layer 2 goes towards the left, and layer 3 is even furthermore left. And it just seems to work better that way. My numbers go from right to left on this side, and they go from left to right on this side.
It's ergonomics.
It is ergonomics. So these layers feed an internal processing engine in the Kurzweil as well. We're still just in the Kurzweil here. This is a powerful instrument, which is why I'm still utilizing technology from 1988, if you will. It's a little faster, but it's the same design from 1988. And it's amazing. I love this thing. And they don't make it anymore, which is really sad too. And they never quite perfected the live sampling stuff that I'm into.